Hello and welcome to Paul and Ted's Talk Time. Today we're going to be talking about the nature of love.
Interesting concept, Paul. Can you give us some idea of what you mean by that phrase, nature of love?
Well, love, it's it's a word that's bounced around a lot, isn't it? And it's universally bounced around.
Overused?
I would say so, but I would argue more to the point that it's a word that's often used without people really having a comprehension of really what they're saying. I think their intentions
Mm.
would be good,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's used in a positive way.
Mm.
But as a concept, I think if you were to ask most people, um, what is your definition of love, or what do you mean by love? They'll
Mm.
come back at you with, well, don't be heavy, as though,
Mm.
there's
Mm.
something wrong with you for asking a
Mm.
reasonable question.
Mm.
And I think it's a concept that is very vague. And I would argue, I'm not sure if you're aware of Eric Fromm.
No, I've never heard of him.
He was a psychologist. I think he was a psychologist too. He argued that love was, um, you know, most people had a concept of love which was, in his words, or um, kind of an object love.
How did he mean?
Well, what he meant by that, as far as I can understand, is that um, most people most people think of love as a slushy, sentimental emotion,
Mm.
um, which has a good feel factor to it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is what I don't know, excites people, or
Mm.
people say, I've fallen in love.
Mm.
What does that mean? It sounds a very rational thing to say. I've
Mm.
fallen in love, as though I've got no control. I've
Mm.
fallen in love.
Mm.
But Eric Fromm argued that it's not this slushy, sentimental
Mm.
emotion. It's an object love,
Mm. So
which
he
most
he
people have.
nailed down a definition, or he just had it as a general concept.
I'm not sure, Doc, of
Mm.
of, of his actual concrete definition. I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to look that up.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty,
Mm.
I'm just giving you a bare outline of
Mm.
of
Mm.
of what he thought
Mm.
most people
Mm-hmm.
thought love
Mm-hmm.
as.
Mm-hmm.
Love was rather.
Mm.
For example, he
Mm.
would argue that most people don't fall in love with the person, but rather what they have. The job,
Mm-hmm.
the prestige,
Okay, well that's
the
fair
the
enough.
the family, the
Well,
relationships.
I think there's a lot to be said for that, Paul. I mean, if you cast your eyes back to the glorious dating days when we were in our teens and twenties, and you were talking to perhaps some girl at the bar and said, "Have you got a boyfriend?" Yeah, I've got a boyfriend, and he's a. That would be almost the first thing she said. He's like an accountant, or he's got a sports car or something. So I think there's a lot to
No,
be
there's
said.
a no, there's a very good example of it,
Mm.
isn't it? I mean, cast your mind back as you are now
Mm.
to the days when you were young. You
Mm.
would get all the accessories, wouldn't you,
Of
to
course.
to be attractive
Mm-hmm.
for a woman?
Right.
And that's what From
Mm.
is driving at
Mm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying it's not really the person,
Mm.
it's the objects.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a bit of a mockery for me. It makes a bit of a mockery of love.
Why?
Well, because why don't you say I'm in love with your car?
I think a lot of people would, but I take your point, and
You know,
yeah, in as much as yeah, you have a point. But I think there's still some room for romantic love. I think the sort of the fired
well,
up high emotions and this. I think this love stretches a little bit wider than perhaps just material possessions and who the person is and what he represents. I think there's maybe more to it.
I'm sure there is, but from the outset, from the initial stages of a relationship, what are people looking at? They're looking
For different things, I would say. I mean, we look culturally, different cultures are looking for different things in people. And
so then we can safely say that love is anything to everybody, or if you follow what I'm trying to
yeah, I
say
think
there,
so. I mean,
it's
before I talk, I consulted the dictionary. I thought, well, I might as well find out what actually we're talking about. And I looked up the definition of love, and it said quite clearly. It says it's when you have a feeling for somebody, which you place more importance than yourself. In other words, do you love that person more than you love yourself? Giving it a a
a
sacrifice
sacrifice. Yeah.
theme.
That's very much Christian kind of based, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm quite sure. Yeah.
But then again, it is it kind of selfish as well?
Oh, I think.
Like this argument of altruism.
Mm,
There's no such thing as altruism because there's always a reason why somebody's doing it. The
mm,
penguins on the iceberg,
mm,
right? They're waiting for the first penguin to jump in
right.
to see if it's safe.
Mm,
Okay. Well, with love, I mean, and this idea of sacrifice. I mean, isn't it kind of selfish?
yeah, totally selfish. But isn't that part and parcel
So
of,
it's
of
not
love?
really a sacrifice. It's because it's feeding a need.
Yeah, I take your point, but if you look at it from a different angle, I mean, you've got so many different ways you can come into this and look at this word, right? And you can take the traditional view of it, which, like you said, is probably the Christian view. In as much as when you meet somebody and then you have this sort of emotion and excitement and all this, and then at some point you say that, oh, now this is love. Okay, you pass over that threshold. This is one way of looking at it. And of course, the other one, which you also mentioned, is that love is you have to tick a number of boxes, and bingo, there you have it. You have your love there because you've ticked enough boxes. I think both are okay.
It's interesting because there's so many ways in which this word is used, and
Mm,
there's so many different types of love.
mm,
Love
mm,
for your children,
mm-hmm,
love
mm-hmm,
for your parents,
mm,
love for those that you're engaged with in
mm,
relationships. I
mm-hmm.
mean, is it all the same?
No, I don't think so. But it's a very, very wide, all-encompassing word, and it also gives you that sort of safety, that feel-good factor, and a sort of a sense of accomplishment. I told her I loved her, and that's me done. What more can I do? The declaration, let's say, for want of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure when love takes on a meaning for me.
Okay.
I mean, I've
Do you
known.
need a meaning? I think if you looked at most people, and like your opening point was a really good one when you said that if you said to somebody what is the meaning of love, they'll come straight back at you and say, oh, that's too heavy. In other words, I think most
Yeah, but
I think most people don't want to have to define this word.
because they don't know what it is.
Nor us, I might add. I mean,
I
this is.
mean, I might as well go around and say banana you.
Mm-hmm, yep. It's not a very good example, but yeah, I
Why?
take your point.
Why isn't it? I
Yeah.
love you. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to
No, no.
say banana you.
Yeah, right. Okay. So it's a word we overuse and we don't really have a clear idea. But I think everybody has their own idea of when they use it and how they use it. I love my car. I love that mutt. Okay.
Excuse
Uh,
me. That's my little doggy there that he's referring to.
I love my wife. I love my kids. And I think you can say that that's the same word, but used four different
But
ways.
it has a very egocentric meaning. Be-
In what respect?
well, it's only meaningful to you
Yes. Yes,
because
it is.
your wife really, or the person you're saying it to doesn't really know what it
Or
is.
directly benefit from that, or they do benefit from that.
Well,
Because that's another very good point, because a lot of people will use this word to curry favor with the person they're saying this to, which is going to lead to a lot of falsity. How do you feel about that idea?
What, the Machiavellian, undercurrent or,
Mm.
hidden
From
agenda?
boys and from girls, well, if I say this, does this, put me a little in a slightly better position than what I was before? It as regards to a relationship or as regards to something I kind of
So,
need.
so the I love you is a means to an end.
I think so. Wouldn't you think that
Isn't
to
that kind of rather?
cynical? I think it is for a romantic. I mean, I take myself. I mean, I like the romantic concept. The sort of the high intensity. I know you love your flowers and things like that. I mean, so I mean, we all have this idea of what we would, you know, our picture of the word love. And here we are looking for a deeper meaning and not actually digging one out, just skirting around the edges. And I think that goes to show that basically when you're going to hear this word love day to day, you're not going to get it in any one given form. You're not going to be able
So
to.
there's no clear, concrete definition. It's it's it has different meanings for different people.
I think that's fair to say. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah,
You
but
don't. You
well, I'm not,
it
I'm
doesn't.
not so sure
It doesn't
because,
sit comfortably with you, does it?
well, I'm not so sure because I'm getting back to this point whereby, okay, let's ask people what it means,
Right. Okay.
and like I said before, they'll just go all defensive.
Hmm. Hmm. And how
So,
would you come back to them? Ask me the question. Go on. Let's run this through for our
what
viewers.
is your definition of love? You
Oh,
might not
well,
feel you have to have one.
all-encompassing emotion of
So
joy,
slushy,
slushy,
sentimental,
sentimental, something,
falling in love.
straight out of the Mills and Boone, and I'm comfortable with that concept. So if somebody's going to ask me, what's your
But
ideal? I
you don't strike me as a kind of dizzy, giddy person who goes skipping down the
Yeah, but
road
just because.
When you've fallen in
No, no,
love.
of course not. But I
I
mean,
mean,
but
maybe
then
there
again,
are times
yeah,
when,
yeah, in the good old days,
yeah.
doctor. No, but I think I think if you're looking for like a definition which suits you, which is
So that
what
was
we're.
a definition for you when you were younger.
Yeah, I think that's another good point. I mean, the fact is, your idea of the word love would change over the years. I mean, I'm 60, and perhaps my concept of the word love is a lot different from it was when I
I
was
mean, somebody
15.
says to me they love me.
Hmm.
I don't process it.
You don't. You
No,
don't.
no, I don't process
Well,
it.
that's strange. Why
No,
not?
no, it doesn't. It's more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm acknowledged, or I'm. You said the word earlier, and I can't remember what it was.
Hmm.
It's a, it's um, it's a feel good factor, isn't
I
it?
think so.
I mean,
Yeah.
stating the obvious here.
Mm.
It's a
Hmm.
feel good factor, but
Mm.
um, I mean,
Okay, but
take
answer your own question. I mean, what is your feeling when somebody says, "Oh, Dr. Paul, I love you"? What is your initial feeling? Is it water off a duck's back, or another one, or what? I mean, how is it?
I honestly, I think it depends on who's saying it.
Well, that's exactly what I said. I said,
You
it does
know,
depend from person to person.
yeah, I
And of
think.
course, the first thing you're going to do if you're receiving the incoming is to think, well, who said that? You know, and then look at the motives involved. Yeah?
Okay, so let's broaden our 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 view of this by bringing in some things like, for example, if you look at, for example, I was watching Jane Eyre last night.
Me too. We decided to watch the
Okay.
same movie last night and to be able to pick up on the various concepts of love which we watched during the movies, and we watched two different ones, so this will be a little bit interesting.
But what I found, um, or no, what I was reminded of was just how different the concept of love was
Back in those days.
back in those
Yeah.
days. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, just astonishingly
And
different.
why? I mean, what was the? I mean, I have an idea on why love was perceived differently then, because, I mean, take Jane Eyre for example, who this is her first time she's been exposed to a man of any description in her life, and she's now a mature, healthy young lady, and the first man she gets exposed to is this rather difficult, cantankerous Mr. Rochester, but she falls directly in love with him. Now, this is a sort of a process because basically there aren't any other men around for her to fall in love, and she's, let's say, primed, ready to do that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I think what stuck out for me was the Machiavellian kind of slant it had for me.
In what way?
In terms of, the young ladies asking, what does he do? It's getting back to my object love kind of concept thing. It was all structured around, wealth and income and heritage and breeding and these kind of things.
Yeah, but those were fundamental issues in those days.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
So that's what love is, then,
Yeah,
is it?
Sense and Sensibility. I remember that movie. That's a good one. And then the guy he falls in love with the girl falls in love with him. They're madly in love, but she's penniless, and he needs money for the estate. And then towards the end of the movie, he's now married a girl and receives the dowry, which manages to help him keep his estate alive. And she's overlooking the estate. I think it's Kate Winslet, I think, in the movie. And her sister's asking her. You say, "Oh, he loved you. You know that, don't you?" And she said, "Yeah, but not enough. Yeah, not enough." And here you see you're having a different idea about degrees of love, which you can throw in the mix as well to make it even more complicated. Okay, so we don't have a clear definition, but let's say we're going with your things where you're ticking boxes and you're loving somebody for who they are and what they have. But at some point there's a cutoff, isn't there? Does he have enough? Yeah, does he have enough
and that
for me?
that always seems to come into play.
And of course it will.
Yeah. So there's a point to love,
Sure. I mean, and if
there's a tolerance level.
I mean, if we're running through, like, let's say, the traditional form of relationships, where you meet, in our case, meet the girl, and then you'd get to know them, and the relationship would start going on this upward sort of emotional line. I mean, at some point there'll be the time when he or she, would say, "Oh, right, now it's it. I'm in. This is love."
Did I mention to you about the mysterious love and the ambiguous love?
No, we didn't get that one yet.
Because it kind of hits on what you're saying about this idea of what people are looking for and so forth. And if you look at, let's say, an average, I hate using that word, but I'll use it, an average onset of a relationship. Okay.
Typical
relationship.
Right.
Group of girls goes to bar, group of guys goes to bar. You got two different bars, two different groups of people. You've got the guys, who are looking for want of a better word, good time.
Good time, yeah.
And they're acting the goat, and
the giddy goat.
The giddy goat, and they're looking and staring and balking at the women, making general asses of themselves.
Boorish is the word.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you take another group of women and a guy walking into a pub, and he's very unassuming, he's sexually attractive, he's ambiguous, mysterious, indifferent. He doesn't,
Is he trying to be like that?
I think he's the cool guy. Now
The
that's
slow and steady.
the slow and steady, the indifferent, the unassuming. So we're not sure if he's aware of it or he's not aware of it, but it comes across as naturally attractive. Okay, so if you put all those things into a pot, the ambiguity, the mystery, the intelligence, the sexual attraction, that becomes very, very attractive, I will argue.
A lovable person is the point you're making, is it? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not so sure about that. I'm just talking. I'm kind of got in my head this idea of the object love again.
Okay.
Although we're talking in terms of concepts now.
Yeah.
The ideal or the attractive.
And looking from the
person
point of view of the girl.
of the girl.
Right. Sure.
Now I would bank money on this. I would bank money on this if you put a girl and you have guy A.
Right.
Who comes in and he's, I want to fancy you and all this palaver. And then you get the other, the Richard Gere, kind of guy who's very unassuming. Okay. Which do you think is going to be more attractive?
Well, I mean, you want me to say, the unassuming girl, but I mean, I think, it may also depend on the character of the girl. But let's go with the point you're driving at here.
Yeah. So the point I'm driving at is that it's the attraction of the concepts.
Right.
I've changed slightly. I've gone from the car, the big house. Now I'm looking at terms of character concepts.
Right. Fair enough.
Ambiguous, unassuming, indifferent. But if you look at those more closely and you kind of say, well, I'm in love, there's very little in that relationship that I would argue is the basis for a solid relationship, because you've got ambiguity, no communication, mystery, no communication, but you've got titillation, you've got attraction, you've got
But haven't you now got the clause in? Aren't you now effectively off and running? And then you can add things to the relationship as you go. As you start to get to know each other, it starts building.
But it's very fragile.
It is fragile. It is fragile, but isn't that how it is to start with?
Yes, that's the whole point that I'm making, But I'm also making the point here that, I think if you want to have a healthy relationship, the focus needs to shift, and you need to be aware of that, to be aware, of your own desires, your own motives, your own feelings. What is it? I mean, you can ask this to a lot of people. You say, what is it that attracted you to him or her? That's a very good question to ask. Why? What? And I often have done this with girls that I've met in the past, and I've talked about or asked them about their past relationships.
And a wide range of answers, no doubt.
Yeah, a wide range of answers.
But I think initially, doesn't it go down to looks to the greater extent? But I tend not to go along with that totally. I think, the guy who
But
had
there's very
something,
little of love in there.
Well, I don't think love comes from the get-go. I think that you get that afterwards.
Well, so it was love at first sight is evidently a no here for you.
For me.
Yeah. But then,
that doesn't rule out. I like the look of her or him.
I'm sure a lot of our visitors, our viewers, would like to perhaps challenge some of.
Well, I hope they do. I mean, that's the whole. The idea of these talks is to raise the subject.
Yeah, and we look forward to generating some provocative and controversial issues, and we look forward to hearing from your comments.
Certainly, yeah.
So,
wrapping up?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I can safely say that I don't think we've come to any clear, concrete conclusion as to what love is. It's obviously different things to different people. It's very culturally determined. let us know what you think, and we look forward to seeing you again
Okay.
soon.
And don't forget to like and subscribe if this kind of video appeals to you.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.